Hey everyone, and welcome to another Hungover podcast. I know you love this, that's why you're tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to the stream on Twitch, which is on Jujubee's Good, to hear it live every Sunday, and you can chime in with your thoughts, opinions, comments, anything you want. Just like you can do thoughts, opinions, comments on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play. You can talk to me, Ivan, or talk to my partner over there.
Julien, welcome to the show, guys. I was paying attention the whole time. I was trying to think of whether or not you can actually comment on Google Play. But if you can figure out a way to comment on Google Play, that'd be really great for us. But of course, an iTunes review really helps with our visibility. So if you don't mind, if you like the podcast, or if you don't, please write us one, because I think, honestly, it works either way. Ivan.
Yo.
We start our podcast out every single week by asking each other, as Captain Vidya has told us in the chat, what we should be doing. What media did you consume this entire week? It's been a big week of media, especially, I feel like, for you. And what'd you drink last night?
Yeah, what did you consume this week, Julien?
Oh, great. I'll answer. Thanks for helping me out there.
No
let's
problem.
See. Today
Threw it right back at you.
Thank you. That's a boomerang of a question. Throwing me off guard here. I don't know. No. I watched a lot of. I finished up Dragon Ball Super, so I'm completely caught up with that show. At least I think they're taking a. I finished the season, the last season of the show that's currently on Crunchyroll, and then I believe they're on hiatus right now, and then they're going to come back with another season, which should be pretty exciting. The last season, the last couple episodes of that show are really effing intense and really exciting stuff. I don't know how they got Goku to become a Super Saiyan God in the beginning of the show, mind you, and then continued to throw enemies at him that he could not beat. And he had to rise above all odds against him, as usual, and then beat them because it's Goku. Come on. Is he really going to lose?
Never. I mean,
but
until he
basically,
does.
They had a really cool Battle Royale tournament, and it's really worth watching, I think. It's actually really awesome. It's a really cool anime sort of thing to do. And let's see, what else did I do? I played a lot of God of War as well. That game is truly a masterpiece. I think everyone who has a PS4 should absolutely pick that game up. I won't spoil anything. I got to a pretty cool part, which I'm excited about. And I won't spoil anything, all right? We'll talk about that later in like a year when everyone who lives under the sun has played it. And won't get pissed off about spoilers. Let's see. I played that, and then I played some Yakuza 6, which is also a great game. But really...
The Song of Life.
The Song of Life is the subtitle of the game. Really excited. I'm excited because I'm preparing to take a travel to Asia soon. Not soon at all. I booked tickets with my girlfriend to go to Korea, specifically Seoul, and also Tokyo. Two places I've never been and have always wanted to go. But that's going to happen in January, so
that's awesome,
that's
though.
A very long time from now.
I'm excited for you.
Gives me good time to learn some Japanese while I'm at it. So hopefully all this anime I've been watching has been collecting in the back of my head, and hopefully I will be able to learn Japanese at an accelerated rate like Goku does.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
There you go. You can say good morning. That's it. Arigato. That's it. That's all I need to know, right? That's it.
Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
I love that song. It taught a generation of Americans how to say thank you, Mr. Roboto, to a robot. But also, I did some drinking last night and yesterday.
No.
Surprise, surprise. Hungover podcast. Someone who hasn't been drinking a lot is me, except for yesterday. I drink a lot. I went to this sweet hipster, cool brewery that popped up in Brooklyn recently called Five Borough Brewing Company, I believe. They basically bought out a whole warehouse in on Second Avenue in Brooklyn and 47th Street, and they have a bar in there, and you can try all their brews, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool place. They had a good sour, I believe, and they had a really good pilsner.
Sours are super popular.
What? Sours are?
Sours are super
yeah, now they
popular
are
nowadays.
definitely.
And I think the pilsner is on the rise as well.
Yeah,
I think IPAs are on the way out, and pilsners are on the rise along with sours.
I mean, as people become more sour in their political disposition, they drink more sour things. Surprise! But pilsners are a solid staple in any person's drinking repertoire because they're really just light, enjoyable beers, but they also have some flavor, which is really nice. As most light beers don't really have too much of an interesting profile, but pilsners can, and this one, they have a pretty good pilsner. I think they called it Industry Pilsner, so maybe go check that out. I think it was worth a drink, and it was a nice spring afternoon, if you will. It was about 70 degrees out in New York City, and I really enjoyed my time there. But that's it for me, Ivan.
That's so annoying. It snowed this morning.
It snowed in Syracuse, 5 hours away from New York City, where it was 70 degrees.
I hate it.
Global warming? No. Just climate. Just the climate of New York State. It's so different. It's such a huge state. You can drive for 10 hours in New York and still be in New York. It's pretty crazy. In one direction, I feel like. I feel like it would take, from New York City to go to Buffalo, it would take almost 10 hours.
It's an 8-hour drive.
It's 8 hours? Okay, so.
Yeah.
I feel like.
On the bus, it's way longer.
That's true. Fuck that bus, man. It's the worst. Yeah. But that's it for me. How about you, Ivan?
As per usual, I haven't checked out too many games, but tonight on my stream,
Overwatch.
We'll check out some Doki Doki Literature Club. Might get into some other dating sims.
Oh my god, dating sim, the life game. I can't wait. It's gonna be great.
We'll check out some variety of things because Overwatch is not in season at the moment. So I'll have a lot more gaming news to talk about next week. But in general, I have been enjoying my movie pass. So maybe with the new changes, I'll have to cut back on how many movies I've been going to go see, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
But I saw 3 movies this week, 2 of which I used my movie pass for. And I'll start with the first one I watched, which was Love, Simon. I think it's mostly out of movie theaters at this point. It came out in February, I guess, this year. Love, Simon stars Nick Robinson as the titular character Simon. He's a closeted gay teen who, through the course of the movie and events, is blackmailed into helping another student, and then the fact that he's gay comes out to his entire school. And it's not his choice of how he reveals it or anything else like that. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a common story. We know that it's like being able to choose who you come out to, when you come out, if you're going to come out. That's like a very personal thing to a lot of people, and being forced to come out can have dire consequences. Yeah. In Love, Simon, it's he has to go through some personal turmoil, but we know that in real life it's done things from when there was that incident that happened at Rutgers where a student took his own life when it was live streamed how he was that he was gay and things like that. So it's of course a very delicate topic to deal with. This movie is based on a young adult book that won a bunch of prizes, Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. And I think it's okay. I'd rate it. It's worth probably streaming. I wouldn't see it in the movie theater. It's like a very cheery overall message. I think it's a very happy movie in the end. The main character is super bland and uncharismatic, so it's boring. And I don't like. There's a dance sequence, and he's bad at dancing.
Okay.
So even for this one sequence, he can't like come out as a like not come out, but like he couldn't energize the scene. So it was really he's the titular character being the most boring person in the movie is really difficult for a lot of movies.
Okay.
He's like friendly and nice, and that's about the extent of his personality. And then all of the people around him check a bunch of the identity boxes that you need in the modern NFL. So you've got the young black girl who has a single mom who just moved from the tough schools in D.C. You've got the young half black, half white athlete.
Okay.
You've got the female white best friend who could be seen as being on the chubbier side or not. I don't know. It depends. So it's just like a lot of identity boxes are being checked. And in a movie that's all about individualism and identity and how to manage that in the modern world with technology and people being more open, but it's still a very delicate balance to have. You know, people are more accepting of all sorts of different people, but there are still people who are very aggressively anti X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And so it's a check and balance in terms of like, okay, you have all the identities that are important for the filmmaker and the writer to talk about, I guess. But at the same time, they're not super exciting. It's very surface level engagement with a lot of the problems. And again, this is another movie in which I'm not the identity which is being examined, so it's much more difficult for me as a person from the outside to look at it and say, okay, this movie wasn't anything special. But I guess for people of a certain generation, people of a certain age, people of a certain orientation, etc., this is an important movie, and it's not for me to judge whether it is an important or not movie. I'm just saying it was a little bland.
Okay.
But it's an important topic to come out to. Even my choice of words is very difficult. It's an important issue to talk about, and the fact that this movie could be made and did pretty well at the box office is important and good. I just wish it was a little more entertaining.
I see. Seems like a movie I might skip, Ivan. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to skip this one.
Okay, let me, for instance, say what the real problem with the movie is.
Okay.
The director really loves car shots. A third of the shots in this movie are the main character Simon driving his car. But they're super boring car shots. They're like excruciatingly
You mean they're not
boring.
a James Bond car chase scene?
They're not a car chase scene. They're not anything extraordinary in terms of the framing of the car. Like, in Phantom Thread, P.T. Anderson did a really cool car shot.
Yeah.
Like, when the way the camera is positioned, you're like, how exactly did he shoot this? It's really intriguing. But the car shots in Love, Simon are boring and bland and done before. So what the fuck is the point? I don't get it. It's just every director is in love with filming how a car moves and people inside of a car. And in terms of that, like in the first few minutes, establishing shots of the school, you've got the Subaru that drives in and it turns for the establishing shot. And then the next shot is him parking the car at the school.
Okay.
It's a minute, or it feels like a minute, of just this car doing absolutely nothing. Nothing is happening except for the establishing of that he's at school and that he parks. There's no one else in the car, it's just him, despite the fact that every other time when he's going to school, he's got 4 people in the car. But yeah, it's that. So there's a lot of like really annoying shots that are done in this movie that they're unmotivated except for the fact that the director or DOP wants them in there. And this movie could have dealt with like some hardcore cutting down and editing. Also, there's very little chemistry that happens between Nick Robinson and his paramour at the end. Like, at the end of a John Hughes movie, when people are kissing, they're making out, right? It's hardcore. Here they basically do like the peck kiss, but they hold that peck kiss for a long time.
Okay, that's awkward.
So it doesn't even seem like there's a lot of chemistry happening between this moment of intense joy that happens at the end of the movie, like every other like solidly happy rom-com. It doesn't really feel like a solid connection.
I see.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me. A movie that is totally different than that was Joaquin Phoenix's the movie that stars Joaquin Phoenix. You Were Never Really Here.
Okay.
This is a thriller that's directed by Lynn Ramsey. She is a Scottish director that's she doesn't do a lot of movies, but the movies that she does do are pretty intense and interesting. So she's done Ratcatcher, Morven Collar. I've never seen either of those. But the one that I've seen and that was really intense is We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Nice.
She did that. So that was in the aftermath of a massacre at his high school. It's dealing with the mother of the kid who committed the massacre.
We Need to Talk About... I feel like I've seen that movie.
Yeah, it stars Tilda Swinton. It's got John C. Reilly. It's a pretty intense and intriguing movie.
I saw this movie.
It's a movie that like all of Lynn Ramsey movies are based on like she has a perspective and wants to talk about it. And what's interesting about this movie is that her perspective doesn't really seem to be there. It's a lot of like floating through like a large kinetic cacophonous energy. So it's anxiety ridden. It's kinetic. It's very quick. The music is driving, although not very poignant. I don't really like how it all meshes together.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of the movie, I think, isn't to have a solid. This is what you should be focusing on. This is what you should be questioning. It's really to drive an emotional response in the movie, because what you need to be questioning is the idea of like an ex-soldier and PTSD and the chaos that ensues in the mind of someone who has suffered severe trauma throughout their life. So Joaquin Phoenix's character is an ex-Marine who makes his money by saving people who are in like kidnapping, like sex trafficking or kidnapped. That's how he makes his money now. And he gets tied up into a very dangerous situation at this moment. So he's former combat veteran and FBI agent. He's known for using his brutal methods, and he's got a lot of trauma that stretches all the way back to his childhood. So I feel like most of this movie, which is an Amazon Studios movie, so you'll probably be able to watch it on Amazon Prime later, which is probably where I'd recommend it being seen.
Man, Amazon has a lot of money, huh?
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix, he's a pretty famous actor.
Yeah, but not a lot of other people in this movie are famous, and so I think it's a lower budget movie.
I see.
It's probably not that expensive as films go, but it's an intriguing film to see. I think a lot of people will enjoy the way that the score interacts with the movie and different.
That's cool.
The photography of the movie really matches the message of the movie. So it's again a movie based on a book, and it's worth watching. But I don't think I'd go to the movie theater.
That's interesting, because I feel like often overlooked aspect and underrated aspects of movie are the scores. So I feel like a really good and original score that works well with the movie is really important.
Yeah. So there's this it's the score works well, and then the music that they choose, there's a series of shots, a segment of the movie which is an assault on a child ring brothel, which happens early on in the movie. And the majority of that scene is filmed through security camera footage.
Okay.
So there's music that's playing, like a song is playing, and it skips or goes back and forward. It creates a kind of jarring, disjointed effect, and then you're flipping back and forth on the security camera footage.
Oh, I see.
Which is black and white. So it's a really intriguing series of shots that were for the shot selection and different things. It was really, I think it's a pretty good movie all in all. I think one of the things that I saw written about it, because after, I don't generally read a lot of reviews before I go in. Afterwards, I'll read some stuff about it. One of the reviews I saw said that this is the post 9/11 Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
And although I don't think it's a lot of the same, I think it's trying to deal with the same message. So I think it's less Hurt Locker, more Taxi Driver, in terms of dealing with PTSD, what it means to be a soldier, and trauma. And I think the real message of the film is in how it makes you feel, and less about the meaning that it's trying to convey, or the perspective that it's trying to convey. So it was pretty cool. And, of course, the last movie that I saw is the movie that everybody in America is going to go see, most people across the world will want to go see, and that's Avengers Infinity War. I saw
First
RPX,
impressions.
huge scene. First impressions, it was a 2 hour and 45, I think, minute movie that felt like it was 2 hours.
Okay.
So it actually feels really well paced.
That's
it's
good.
Engaging. A lot of the, no spoilers on this one, but a lot of the movie is based on vignettes.
Whoa, cool. All right.
So you're checking in with different groups of people. So it does well to like touch base with a lot of people. I think some heroes get a lot less screen time than I think their movies have garnered the attention of. So like, I feel like, for instance, Black Panther got some reshoots and some inserts based on the popularity of the movie, but they didn't like guess how popular Black Panther would be before they filmed it.
I see.
So I feel like Black Panther and the characters from Black Panther don't get enough play. But in general, I was very pleased with how everything came out. It was a very fun movie. Again, I think the best parts of Marvel movies are when you have funny interactions. I think when it gets too serious and gritty, it's ridiculous because it's a superhero movie, and that's not the universe that succeeds. I think all the scenes with Guardians characters interacting with Thor, or like any of the Tony Stark scenes, Mark Ruffalo is the Mark Ruffalo from Thor Ragnarok, so he's much more like skitsy, funny kind of character. I think good. All of those, that ethos, that atmosphere works way better in this Marvel series. And I think actually the movie itself centers around not touching in with all the all the good guys. Like, it doesn't focus on a single good guy or the Avengers as a whole. This first movie's focus is really on the evil Thanos character. Okay. So the driving force in this movie is Thanos, which actually makes it a more unified movie than if you were forced to follow like Tony Stark as he's talking to all these different people, or Thor as he goes through the universe and has to check in with everybody. So I think the unifying plot device being following Thanos is actually very good for this movie.
That's good.
I recommend seeing this in the widest possible screen as soon as possible.
All right, I'll definitely try to check it out next week, for sure. Probably Thursday. So maybe we can have a spoiler cast next week, if I can manage to get to the theaters and get a decent seat. I think I can do it. I believe myself.
Just skip going to work.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, then I can get to the 12 o'clock showing. It'd be great. But yeah, I think those movies really shine when you have, I guess specifically the Avengers movies, is really when you have the interactions of all the characters, and that's what everyone wants to see. And I feel like they do a pretty good job of them, or at least the movies I've seen where all the characters are together, like Civil War and the first Avengers movie was great. You finally get Guardians characters interacting with like Earth characters, which is pretty fun. Right. I mean, 10 years of Marvel movies has been building up to this one movie, essentially. So I'm glad they did a good job, at least according to you. And
I think
we'll see what
I
goes
think
from
it has
here.
a not universal approval, but I think it has a generally very high approval.
Is it
rating.
a spoiler if you tell us how many end scenes there are? How long do I have to wait after the credits roll?
I only watched the one, so if there's a second one, then sure.
All right, it'll be on YouTube anyways. Hey, Cyber Turnip, welcome to the chat. That's an awesome name, man. Welcome to the party. We're having a good time. Ivan just finished up a little bit about Avengers. We are not going to spoil anything, don't worry. But we're going to get on to the topic of the show now, Ivan. Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, decided to mosey on over across the DMZ to have a nice meeting with Moon. I'm just going to call him Moon because I do like that name.
Very respectful.
Moon say... that is a really cool name. I do like the name Moon, of South Korea. And it was a really prosperous and I think productive meeting between the two. Of course, Kim Jong-un has never crossed the DMZ ever. I believe that's a fact. And what are we getting out of this, Ivan? What do you think is going on?
We are getting the transition of the transition to the end game of the war between the Koreas.
Nice.
So, for those who are unaware, there has been an armistice, which means that technically there's a war that is occurring between North Korea and South Korea, which hasn't ended ever. That's why there's the DMZ, which is the demilitarized zone.
Yep.
It is a space that is filled with landmines and a whole bunch of very strict security procedures to make sure nobody gets pulled either side of the barrier. And essentially this has existed since the 50s when the Korean War began. What we have now is Kim Jong-un, who succeeded he is the third president of Korea under the communist regime. Mm-hmm. He seems to be pretty progressive in terms of wanting to make deals and talk to people. And perhaps this is because of Dennis Rodman. Perhaps this is because of Donald Trump being
It's 100% of just Dennis Rodman. He is the arbiter of the message.
Listen, basketball builds bridges is all I'm saying.
It's a great sport. It's a great sport. As obviously, Kim Jong-un thinks it's a great sport.
So there's been a lot of movement recently between North Korea and the rest of the world in order to make sure that this peace treaty will come to fruition. So Donald Trump has agreed, very famously has agreed to sit down with Kim Jong-un with no preconditions, which is something that Obama said that he would do. And so Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un are going to do it. It's pretty stellar as far as international relations goes.
Yeah.
To have that kind of meeting, it's very important in terms of the proliferation of nuclear weapons. So as we know, one of the main reasons that North Korea is important in international relations is the fact that it is a very small country that has nuclear capabilities and has been attempting to develop a payload delivery system that could strike across the world, most importantly targeting the U.S., which has been the long antagonist of North Korean progress in terms of taking over the Korean Peninsula or just maintaining themselves as the central communist power on the Korean Peninsula.
Yeah.
So Kim Jong-un has sat down. His representatives have met with Mike Pompeo, who is Trump's nominee for succeeding as Secretary of State, as well as the CIA director. Kim Jong-un now has sat down with South Korean President Moon Jae-in or something of that sort. I apologize, Moon Jae-in. I'm not a East Asian expert. My expertise is more Near East, Middle East, Africa. Yeah. So this is a lot of stuff that I learned a long time ago that I don't really remember very clearly.
Well, hey, I mean, I think this is a little. This is obviously a great meeting that happened, and I think there will be a lot of progress to be made towards a nuclear weapon free future, however long that takes. It might take 1,000 years from now, but hopefully we get rid of all these nuclear weapons, because I think they're really. I mean, they're obviously called weapons of mass destruction for a reason. I feel like they shouldn't exist. And I really don't. It's like it was a great scientific advancement that led to the creation of these weapons, and I'm really glad that a huge nuclear power in the world is beginning to take the first steps in getting rid of their weapons and trying to reduce the amount total. But I don't think that means that, for instance, the United States is going to do anything different about their weapons, or our weapons, I guess we can call it. And I think that we have like way too many. I don't know why we would need this many at all. I feel like just one is enough if you really need it. I don't know. But honestly, I thought it was interesting that this happened at all. I feel like there was no like sort of build up to it. It sort of just seemed like he just decided to walk over to South Korea one day, and the press made a big deal about it. I feel like, but I guess that's common with North Korean news and politics. We don't really hear much about the inner workings of North Korea, so maybe that's just how it's going to be. Or maybe not from now on. Who knows? It looks like they're trying to be more diplomatic about everything. But it seems to me like this just came out of the blue. He just decided to make a peace treaty with South Korea. I don't know if there was a lot of build up to this, however. I mean,
I think the thing to focus on with North Korea is the condition of the North Korean state over the course of time, and the ability of, for instance, if we look at nuclear powers or almost nuclear capable states that have ceded to treaties and the intention behind them. So one of the most famous cases is Iran, right? Iran struck a deal with the then President Obama and the rest of the world in order to make sure that they didn't arm with military-grade nuclear power, and were using it for peaceful nuclear energy, etc. So Iran gained a lot of benefit from that, as well as the world gained a lot of benefit, because it was a denuclearization of military grade stuff from Iran. So a lot of nuclear reactors, in terms of centrifuges, have gone down. So the ability for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon has gone from months to a year or more. They have been more acceptable of international dialogue. There have been a lot of benefits that came out of the Iran Treaty. So North Korea sees an opportunity with Donald Trump as the president, with the Olympics that were located in the area, because they were in South Korea. So this is a moment in which North Korea can come from a position of increased global awareness, increased strength, in terms of North Korea has a better position to come to the table now, especially with a lot of the troubles that have still been going on throughout the world in terms of economic power. So it's possible that at this time, when North Korea has had decades and decades of unsustainable amount of suppression and oppression of their people over the course of time, malnutrition, miseducation, things like that. Maybe this is the time for North Korea to come out, find a balance between preserving the power of the central state and being able to enter into the global market in a more sustainable way to preserve Kim Jong-un's power.
Yeah.
So in this way, you can strike a deal that's more akin to the Iran deal, and denuclearize, demilitarize all of these programs. So military spending the analogy is guns or butter, right? You can spend on guns, but if you spend on guns, you can't spend on butter. So if you have a North Korea that is going to step down its military nuclear program, only use it for peaceful means, etc., then you can increase spending elsewhere. You might be able to take sanctions away from your personal wealth and things like that, as Kim Jong-un has. Again, there are many sanctions that they're so-called targeted sanctions, so they're against the leaders of North Korea, etc., rather than attempting to be against the entirety of the Korean people. And perhaps the North Korean printing presses that have been printing fraudulent U.S. money and the hackers that North Korea has been implementing, for instance, on Sony, the North Korean hack on Sony, so to speak. These are functions of a North Korean state attempting to gain power. They couldn't do it that way, so maybe this is a way to re-enter the global stage at a position that gives them more power or advantageous spots. And I think that the Olympics being in South Korea is a spearhead into being able to make that. So that was important in terms of the timing.
I see. So do you think, I mean, I feel like so then we have a North Korea that's more willing to be not as closed off as we've seen North Korean politics have been for the past, I guess, almost 50 years now, right? I would say, or perhaps maybe that's the wrong number, but so we're gonna see more North Korean or North Korea try to put itself into a position that is more globally aware and advantageous to North Korea. Obviously, they have an obligation to protect their people and things like that. But we'll see them come into the global economy, for instance. And I guess, I mean, that's good. I mean, we should have more countries. What's the saying? Rising tide raises all ships, perhaps. Is that the saying? So, I mean, if more countries are doing better in their economy, that's better for everyone, is it not? Not necessarily, I guess, depending on how
depends on the structure of the economy.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. So I guess I'm just trying to see if it's a good
so
thing.
The point is,
Yeah.
Increased trade doesn't guarantee democracy, but increased exposure to the world as a whole pushes towards a more democratic system of governance in most places. Other than when you get reactionist nationalist policies happening as a result of globalization, etc. So, but in general, you can't guarantee, but it is more likely for a country to have bigger pressure of popular vote, things like that, with increased access and interaction with a globalized world.
Okay.
So, if we have the opportunity to increase the interaction of the North Korean state and the North Korean people with the world at large, I think that should be seized upon as much as possible to remove censorship, to increase interaction, things like that. However, just allowing for the increase of North Korean interaction in the global economy might not be beneficial all people.
Yeah, not necessarily beneficial, right? Okay.
Yeah. So we have to take into account national security and those things without relinquishing the idea of human rights. And that is essentially the question, right? So how do you balance out with North Korea the ideas of security and human rights? So, for instance, if we secure objectives of national security, a denuclear weaponize North Korea, who signs back onto the NPT, agrees to reduction of centrifuges, attempts to build nuclear weapons, closing down of nuclear test sites, etc. But in order to get those gains, we have to allow for Hennessy to be sold to Kim Jong-un's family, for instance. is that a decent trade-off? Like, I think that as the major player in terms of the Western side, the United States needs to push for increased human rights for the people of North Korea as part of this package of whatever North Korea wants. So it should be about security for sure. It should be about denuclearization, but it should also be about helping the North Korean people as much as possible. And if the goal is only to relinquish nuclear weapons, I mean, yeah, that is important, especially to Californians and South Koreans and Japanese people. But I think at the larger scale, for me, it would be important to help the Korean people as much as possible.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we hear horror stories of North Koreans being tortured and brainwashed and things like that. I'm not entirely sure if it's true.
Labor camps,
I don't know.
And things like that.
I don't know for instance, if that's actually true. I hear stories countering that. I hear stories that it's true. You don't ever know. And then we had that movie, The Interview, which clearly is true. It's a documentary. I don't know if that's the name of the movie. Yeah, that's the name of the movie with
The Interview
Seth Rogen
and what's the
James
name?
Franco.
Yeah,
Is that the one? Which one of the Franco brothers? I don't know.
Yeah, it's James Franco.
Okay. The more famous one. Clearly that's a documentary. But what I wanted to know is what is the likelihood that America and because I guess we've proposed that Donald Trump is going to meet with Kim Jong-un, what's the likelihood that we get an Iran type deal, maybe not exactly the same terms, but a similar deal that is signed by America, considering Donald Trump has been vehemently opposed of the Iran deal and says that it's the worst deal ever, and he's actually he may or may not, I think in the next month.
Donald Trump hates the Iran deal because it was an Obama legislation.
Yeah, I know.
Under Obama. So any deal that comes out with North Korea is like Donald Trump's resume for earning the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
Never forget that President Barack Obama earned a Peace Prize for nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, absolutely.
He did nothing, was woken up and was surprised that he was even on the list of people that would have been considered. There is a lot to gain from this deal. And Donald Trump, as a president, loves positive feedback, right? So he loves when good things happen that he can brag about, and his braggadocio will know no end if he's able to secure a lot of things from this North Korean deal.
Okay.
I think the fact that so much progress has been made is a testament to the DPRK's new approach to international diplomacy. I think a lot of this has to do with Kim Jong-un knowing his country's position and being less hardline than his predecessor, his father.
Obviously. I mean, he decided to cross the DMZ.
Yeah. So I think that this is a point of great hope for the Korean Peninsula.
Okay.
And Donald Trump will use this as much as possible to exploit for his own personal gains and to try and get his Nobel Peace Prize running.
I see.
There was an article that was on Newsweek, which is a trash magazine, that was talking about the possibility of Donald Trump receiving a Nobel Peace Prize if he was able to get these two countries to come together.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So in the long run of things, I think that this is a very important issue for global security and nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
It is very minor in terms of its actual effect on like the U.S. economy, and I really think that it's minor in terms of national security. But it's always important to remove nuclear weapons from, quote, rogue states, unquote, as much as possible. So it's very necessary for all of these talks to go as as good as possible. The problem with Donald Trump is that he's a man who has no ideas.
Yeah.
His ideas come from Fox and Friends or Sean Hannity.
Did you see that? Sorry to interrupt you. Did you see that interview he had with Fox and Friends? Where he literally rambled on about nonsense. Obviously, that's what he's famous for. But it got to the point where Fox and Friends had to stop him again, and they had to say, "Well, I'm sure you have a lot of things that you need to do right now because you're a very busy man."
Yeah, this is.
So funny.
I mean, it's ridiculous when a president is getting his agenda set by a cable news program, or it's not even news, actually, a cable entertainment program.
It's entertainment.
And so I think I would rather, this is a good step in terms of global security, etc.
Yeah.
I would rather it be done by people who have a moral compass and ideas than this administration.
Uh-huh.
I think that at a large part, if we have to leave it down to Donald Trump and his famous negotiation tactics, this is going to be not the best. The entirety of the government is understaffed in terms of its international diplomacy branches, right? We have understaffed in terms of diplomats. Rex Tillerson's goal in the State Department was very minimal development of a cohesive argument in terms of the State Department. A lot of the times what we see happening in the Trump administration is not everybody's voice is heard. Mm-hmm. So and you don't get a lot of voices around the room saying what needs to be said, point counterpoint kind of thing. So in this regard, I think that this is a very dangerous situation in terms of formulating a cohesive strategy that is beneficial to the U.S., etc. But it is a positive step. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it is a very positive step. I honestly, if there's any way to get, I really think that is a huge issue, not just in terms of having a scary World War III where we have a nuclear war, right? I mean, that let's leave that aside. The process of getting rid of nuclear weapons is much more than just, disarming the bomb. You have to deal with the nuclear waste, which lasts for years or will outlast Donald Trump because I don't know how old he is. He's very old. And that sort of impact on the environment, storing nuclear waste very safely obviously needs to be done safely.
There's no safe way to store nuclear
exactly
waste.
Yeah, right.
Nuclear waste storage in terms of its safety is a ridiculous notion. Do you know what the most safe way to store nuclear waste is? To send it into the sun. That's
exactly
and the best solution,
and that would cost so much money.
Burying it in the earth.
Yeah, so I mean the fact that this, I don't know how many nuclear weapons America has alone. It's in the thousands at least, I would assume.
6,800 nuclear warheads.
Exactly. That's enough to
something
blow
like
up
that.
In America alone, right? That's enough to
and Russia has almost as many, or if not more.
Human civilization, everything. Why do we have that much? So we have to think about, or scientists have to think about, how to get rid of this. So any sort of political movement towards getting rid of it, or at least disarming the bombs, is good enough news for me. I'm happy about it, and I think this. I mean, obviously, we see this a lot in politics. It's baby steps towards a greater goal. So I think this is definitely a good thing, and I'm happy. Good. Yeah. Good on everyone. And, of course, the internet got some great memes out of it. I mean, come on. This is a great time to be alive. Let's go. 2018. This is a good start to the middle of 2018. I hope things get better. But, Ivan...
So, if we accede to not invading North Korea, it's said that they will give up their nuclear weapons, which is probably an even trade. Let's not get into that kind of war.
So, do you think, does that mean that we have to remove our our troops from the DMZ or South Korea, wherever they are. I think that's where they would be, right?
That's
border.
an intriguing point. I don't know whether that would be the case or not. You know what the weird thing is about the U.S. military?
We're everywhere.
Still got troops in Germany.
Yeah.
Are we so afraid that Angela Merkel is going to invade the Czechia and
No, but it's the military presence of America that keeps us so powerful, Ivan. Come on.
Yes, I know, because it's the reason that Bitcoin will never rule the world is because Bitcoin doesn't have a military, and the U.S. dollar does. So,
but it's it's true. They're one and the same. All right, that's all I gotta say. That if goddamn Bitcoin. Look, I think the people will rise up to defend Bitcoin. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the people will rise up and applaud any agreement that is beneficial for the Koreas and the world at large. Let's go no nuclear weapons as much as possible. Let's reduce those. But you know what? Let's not reduce the volume on this here podcast when we reach our end segment. Unless you had something to add.
No,
John.
I have none to say. I think we're in a good spot to end the podcast because we end it every single week. Thanks for that great segue, Ivan.
I'm a professional.
It's amazing. You are a professional, and really, someone needs to notice you eventually because you're on your way to the top here. Look, Overwatch League, we're coming for you. But yeah, we end our podcast every single week in a song in a segment called Hungover Radio. This is where you, the listener or viewer, can send in your music live if you wanted. That might take a while because I'd have to download. I don't know. Anyways, but you can send it into gaminghungover@gmail.com if you have a song or your friend has a song that wants some free advertisement. And as this truck passes by, you'll know that this is a great opportunity for you and the community to enjoy your music. So definitely send it in there. If no one sends in a song, that means I get to pick a song. And Ivan, I'll tell you, I have one picked because I managed to remember halfway through the podcast that I needed
the God
a song.
of War theme, isn't it?
What? Oh, that's so much better. Oh, done. God of War just came out, so hope you guys enjoy the God of War theme. Because that game, it's spoiler-free, all right? This theme is spoiler-free. You got to enjoy it. Hopefully it gets you guys hyped to play this great game. I think there's only one other game that will rival it this year in terms of the Game of the Year conversation, and that's probably Red Dead Redemption 2. Ugh.
Excited
Red Dead Redemption 2. We'll see, though. That game's not out, but hopefully it's pretty good. So hope you guys enjoyed the podcast and keep the conversation going in the comment section below. We'd like to know what you think about all these North Korean and South Korean memes. Send those in to us at gaminghungover@gmail.com. We'd like to look at them. Yeah, Ivan, thanks a lot for telling us about North Korea and South Korea. It was very educational.
Thank you for telling us about North Korea and South Korea too.
Thanks, Ivan. That's a very sarcastic comment.
I'm not
Thank you very
taking
much.
all of the blame of this podcast on my own shoulders. You're here. You're 50%.
It was
of this
my
podcast.
idea.
God damn it.
Yeah. Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace out.
Bye.